See that? That is a pool of paint. Now, you're wondering where that pool of paint came from? That bucket. Do you know what that bucket has? A lid. And do you know what was not happening with that lid? Attachment. It was not attached to the bucket. So when I went to pour the paint through that little hole in the top of the bucket, the whole thing came off, splooshed everywhere, which made a huge mess. And I had to clean it up, which I think I did. That's going to be under a floor. I'll wipe it out when it's a little more solid and easier to peel off. Anyways, suffice to say, made a big mess. And the first thing that went through my head when that thing fell off was, whose fault is this? Who did this? And I got, that initial kind of anger that comes right in when something happens. You want to blame somebody. And then I realized and remembered that I loosened the lid on Friday. So there was absolutely nobody to blame for this but me. And I didn't like it. Now, didn't ruin my day, didn't whatever. And it's not like this is something that was an overwhelming sense of anger and frustration. It was just this initial surge of reaction that said, I want to blame somebody for this. And isn't that so much like life? I mean, this is one of the ways that the enemy gets us, in that it said, the enemy comes and says, well, it's not your fault. It's somebody else's fault. And we do something stupid, and we fall into sin, or we make decisions that don't honor and glorify God, or we do something and we begin to experience the consequences of our actions, and we want to turn around and say, well, it's not my fault. It's somebody else's. That was the initial response to sin. The initial response to sin wasn't, God, you're right, I was wrong. It wasn't me, it was the woman. And then the woman, it wasn't me, it was a snake. And the first thing that we want to do is we want to deflect that guilt and that shame onto somebody else so that we don't have to sense it ourselves. But here's the thing. If we do not experience that, we do not grow from that. I mean, the truth is, failure teaches us sometimes a lot more than success. And one of the reasons that we miss the lesson is we don't stop and ask ourselves, what did I do? What was my part to play in this? Love my kids. They're awesome. And when they used to fight, and they did, Madison and Michael only a year apart, so they were totally different personalities, totally different set of priorities, and they fought over just about everything. And when they get upset with each other, of course, I'd have a talk with Michael or I'd have a talk with Madison, and what they would want to do is say, well, it's the other person's fault. And I would constantly bring them back to, listen, I'm talking to you, I deal with your stuff. When I'm talking to the other person, I'll deal with their stuff. But what did you do? What could you have done to make this different? What lesson can you learn so that you can avoid this situation in the future? And as children, they hated that. Now, they recognize it now, and I've got kids that are much more likely to take responsibility for their actions than a lot of other people, and I'm really proud of them for that. But that initial sense of, who can I blame? How can I deflect? And when we do that, a couple of things happen. Like I said, we don't learn the lesson, and we don't ask forgiveness. We don't confess sin that we don't think we did. Or we deny that we did. See, when we come into a situation where something happens negatively, the first questions that we should be asking ourselves is, what did I do? What was my part in making this happen or perpetuating this? Or what could I have done differently to actually change this? See, I learned a lesson about that paint in that bucket. I really need to check the lids before I start pouring stuff. I can't blame anybody else. And even if it was somebody else, I should have checked it anyway, because I was the one doing the pouring. I need to take responsibility for my actions, the things that I do to cause somebody else's pain or my frustration, or what I do that misses the mark of what God has called me to do, and that's called sin. That's how we learn. That's how we grow. There's a country song, because you know I love country, that says, I grow better in hard dirt. Why? Because it makes me stronger. Okay, guys, sometimes the hard dirt's you. So we need to work on it. We need to recognize what it is that God is exposing in our lives so that we can become more and more of who He wants us to be, so we can enjoy more and more of the good life that He has for us. All right, hope that's been an encouragement to you. God bless you. Bye for now.